All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er update on this Monday. Of course, the Niners beat the Seahawks yesterday. They are currently the number one seed in the NFC playoffs if the season ended today, which it doesn't. And up next are the Arizona Cardinals. And Kyle Shanahan spoke earlier today, and he first touched on the injuries. Probably the most serious, it sounds like, is Oren Burks, who's got a knee injury, and he's probably going to be out the next 2 to 3 weeks. So the 49ers lose a linebacker in Oren Burks. They do have good depth at linebacker. Jalen Graham made a great play on special teams. D. Winters is coming on. They've got Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. They got Curtis Robinson in the building. So they have options at linebacker, but Burks is going to be out at least 2 weeks, maybe 3, with a knee injury. Dre Greenlaw's got a hip and an ankle injury. Kyle said that Greenlaw will be day-to-day. Charvarius Ward has a groin pull. And yet it obviously is not too serious because Shanahan indicated that Ward may go this week against Arizona. Javon Hargrave also has a hamstring injury, and it doesn't sound like, there have been some conflicting reports. Some say that Hargrave's may miss several weeks, but Shanahan indicated today that he may play against Arizona this Sunday. As far as some of the other guys, Ross Dwelly, high ankle sprain. Sounds like he's out for this week. Spencer Burford, Shanahan said he hopes to have Burford return this week. He said Darrell Luter Jr., the rookie corner out of South Alabama, they're hoping that he returns to practice on Wednesday. And Elijah Mitchell, who's been battling, I believe, a knee injury, he is expected to return this week as well. So that was the story on the injury front. As far as the number one seed, Kyle was asked about being the number one seed and what's his reaction to being the number one seed. And he said, hey, I have no reaction until it's official, which is probably the right answer. ESPN Analytics says the Niners have a 59% chance of being that number one seed when it ultimately is decided at the end of the year, and a 39% chance of being the NFC's number 2 seed. Under the current format, only the number 1 seed gets the bye. And obviously the bye is huge in the playoffs in the NFL. So you want that bye. The Niners have a very good chance right now. If Seattle beats the Eagles next week in Seattle, the 49ers, outside of running the table for the rest of their games, could lose to Baltimore on Christmas. They're probably their toughest remaining opponent, and still be the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. So things are looking good for the Niners on that front. Kyle was asked about Jason Verrett. Verrett officially signed with the 49ers today. He's now a part of their practice squad. And the bottom line on Verrett is that you can never have enough good corners. This guy's got, all-pro corner caliber feet, and he's an excellent cover man. And he's had injuries throughout his career, lots and lots and lots of injuries. He's been totally unable to stay healthy. But Kyle said, hey, look, when you're on the practice squad, you're one play away from, being on the field, and, indicated that, they'll take a look at Verrett, where he's at conditioning wise, and take a look at him at practice and evaluate him. And we'll see where it goes from there. He was totally non-committal about, Verrett's future and what he'll, ultimately when or if he'll get on the field in any real capacity for the 49ers. But once again, veteran corners who can cover, and that's Jason Verrett, are rarely on the street in the middle of December. And so for the 49ers to sign Verrett, it definitely was an eye-opener. And it made a lot of people wonder, is Mooney Ward's groin a more serious issue? But then when Shanahan said that Ward could go Sunday against Arizona, it sounds like the Verrett signing is not in any way tied to Mooney's injury of his groin this week. So he also mentioned that Eric Armstead is likely to be out this week against Arizona. Armstead's got a couple different injuries that he's battling, but mostly plantar fasciitis. He's also had some knee pain. As far as this last game, who stepped in for Armstead? Well, Kevin Givens played 24 snaps, and I thought Givens, based on what I saw, looked pretty good. Kalia Davis played 22 snaps. Javon Kinlaw started opposite Javon Hargrave and played 35 snaps, and I think Kinlaw may have played one of his best games. He was active. He played with a bended knee. He played with leverage. He stayed low. He made plays against the run. He also had a half a sack. So Kinlaw, Kalia Davis, and Kevin Givens inside are going to be who they're going to go with no Armstead. And there's a chance they have no Hargrave in this game against Arizona this weekend. Kyle was asked about playing Deebo Samuel on kickoff returns and utilizing Deebo on kickoff returns. And he said, it's really not dependent on the fact that Ray McLeod has been put on IR, that they were discussing just ways to get Deebo more touches. They love Deebo as a runner with the ball in his hands, and they would like to see more situations like that. And Kyle said, hey, the one way you can guarantee that Deebo gets the ball and touches the ball is to hand it to him. So they're probably going to continue to use him as a runner. I would imagine end arounds and reverses are going to be a staple going forward with Deebo, who showed up this summer in great shape, and they're going to take advantage of that. He delivers punishment to the opposition, and according to Kyle, they're going to keep using him as a kickoff returner, which I think is a great thing. One of the things that Kyle didn't discuss this week, but I'm sure the Niners are very cognizant of, they missed 14 tackles against Seattle. And, what happens typically is when teams start to get a little fatigued, they start to miss tackles. The Niners missed a number of tackles in those 3 weeks prior to the bye week. And credit Zach Charbonnet, credit Kenneth Walker. Those two backs were fantastic. Their effort, their explosiveness, how they twisted and turned and got away. I mean, Walker made, I think, four guys miss on one play. And Charbonnet is really a very, very good runner. So I would credit Walker and Charbonnet more than I would say it was a major negative from the Niners. But if you want to win the Super Bowl, you don't miss 14 tackles. And I'm not saying it never happens, but it's an area that they got to clean up as they go forward. And as far as D. Molinari, he got ejected. And Kyle said, hey, look, our culture is that I'm glad that he's got everybody's back. I'm glad that he's willing to fight basically at the drop of a hat, but don't get yourself ejected. He said that Demo talked to him and called him and that he was very remorseful, and that other than, the ejection, thought he played great. Mooney went out early, like 2 plays into the game, and they brought in Oliver and they moved Demo outside, and he played great. He made impactful plays, and, he's become a major staple of the 49er defense. He can play inside, he can play outside, and he plays both spots almost equally well. Kyle was also asked about CMC's comment that the offense was sloppy, and he talked about their yards per play in the first half and that it was over 11 yards per play, and yet they only had 14 points. And he's, in his mind, he felt like they should have had more points. He was also asked about kind of sitting on the ball, not calling timeouts at the end of the half, and it sounded like he had some different ideas. He didn't want to give Seattle time to, either hit a PI or a go route and get a field goal. And then when more time clicked off the clock, he just decided to pack it in, not go for it, not wait, not use the timeouts, and just go into the locker room up 14-10. The way he described it seemed reasonable, though if the Niners get into a game with an explosive offensive team like a Miami or, who knows, Kansas City, you don't want, or Dallas in a big game, you don't want to waste any series, and you don't want to waste any scoring opportunities. So how they handle the clock and how they maximize their offense is going to probably matter more in some of those games against the more explosive offensive teams. But in this particular game and the way the thing came down, Kyle said, you know what, I was happy to go into the locker room up 14-10. And then he was also asked a little bit about Brandon Ayuk and his ability as a blocker. And he just thinks that that's been a constant, that Ayuk is an outstanding blocker. And, we saw Ayuk with just incredible blocks on the CMC 70-plus yard run at the beginning of the game. I mean, Ayuk was down the field. He was blocking. I mean, Ayuk is turning into a tenacious blocking wide receiver. There's good blockers, there's bad blockers, but this guy is like another level with how tenacious he is and how relentless he is as a blocker down the field. And if you want to have big gains in the run game, you got to have receivers that block. And Ayuk blocks probably as well as any receiver in the game right now. All right, thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. And also thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Check that link in the description. Use the promo code KRUG, KRUEG, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.